You on our X handle at Ellen24_7. I will be bringing that video in a while. But then there's been reactions around that video, about happenings and why they would have to go that way to harass the people. But then one thing I would say is that something must have happened. I know you've been arguing with me that no.
He's dragging. He's my sister, come down. Tofu. Jesus! No. How can you see what they did to my eye? Are you seeing? Do not support your friend. Do not support your friend. This is not good. Jesus! Come on, everybody. Are you done? Bring this phone. Why are you covering? Give me the phone. Give me this phone. Okay. You covering me. Please be right.
This guy, there's blood all over his face. Of course, he's been brutalized. Take a look at the faces of the people that are perpetrating this act. I just think Nigerian security agencies should be protecting its citizens and not inflicting harm on its citizen. Yeah, but I know you have the perspective of, we don't have the full details of what could have transpired. There's a lot of details out there. But I've seen somebody say that the guy wanted to overtake their vehicle. Another person is saying, if you listen to the video, the guy is saying, how did I bash your car? Then the wife is saying something else. But whether or not it was an overtaking, whether or not it was a bashing of the car, does this guy, as a Nigerian citizen, whose taxpayers' money, whose tax money is being used to pay these people, does he deserve this kind of treatment?
Yes, so
from these people?
That's truly a good question. Does it deserve this kind of treatment? They are supposed to be protecting the citizen and not meeting this kind of, harassment on the citizen, this violent harassment that's been meted to this particular man and, of course, his wife. And we know that already they've been asked to be probed on this matter. They've been asked to, for the Nigerian military to do something about it. This is not the first time that we'll be witnessing this kind of situation, and we hope that it would not just go, punished. And for the family to get justice for this meted on them. I'm sure that the law, I'm sure that the courts would have something to say about it. If they will be court-martialed or something at the end of the day for a major general of, someone of his caliber to actually engage in this kind of acts against a Nigerian citizen. Hopefully, something would be done. And of course, we don't also want to hear the story from the side of the family on all of this matter. We wouldn't let it go.
Let me say,
we wouldn't let it go.
Of course, definitely before we move on to the next topic, I'm really glad that we're able to document this. Somebody was able to document this, make videos of it. Because when we were talking about Okwama, the recent killings in Okwama community, and every other thing, every other one that take place that we don't have videos of. Remember that the armies, the Nigerian army were condoning people off that environment. Nobody had access to those places. Videos with even reporters, news reporters could not even go there. We could not access the place to even know the situation of things. But right now we have the video. We can actually say, okay, this is what happened.
Yeah, so that's interesting, and we hope that something would be done to that incident. We actually reach out also to the family, and we commiserate with them on the happening on that violence against them. All right, well, let's get to our top story for the day, and today we're looking at these areas on this morning. In the news, we're looking at Tinubu writes the National Assembly seeking approval for 1.77 trillion naira fresh external borrowing. That's about $2.2 billion. And on the front burner, we're focusing our attention on rebasing. Will rebasing solve Nigeria's economic challenges? That's a very crucial question, as the federal government says it's going to be rebasing Nigeria's national GDP as well as inflation data. Also in the news, G20 summit. Nigerian President Tinubu endorses launch of Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty. Plus, Nigeria land digitalization prospects and challenges will be the last conversation we'll be having on this morning on our business review segment later for you. We hope that we're able to give you a beautiful conversation at the end of the day. We'll be back shortly to discuss this. And of course, our colleague will be joining us from Abuja in just a moment. All right about now, we kick off with our developing stories. And the first on the lineup here is that Nigerian President Bola Tinubu has written to the National Assembly seeking approval of a fresh 1.767 trillion naira, an equivalent of $2.209 billion, as a new external borrowing plan in the 2024 Appropriation Act. And if approved, the loan will be used to partly finance the deficit of 9.7 trillion naira for the 2024 budget. The president's request was read by the speaker during plenary on Tuesday. He has also forwarded the NTEF FSP 2025-2027 to Parliament. That's the short-term expenditure framework, and the National Social Investment Program Establishment Amendment Bill to make the social register the primary tool for the implementation of the federal government social welfare programs. And this is as the Central Bank of Nigeria recently said the government spent $3.58 billion servicing the country's foreign debt in the first 9 months of 2024. All right, so yes, I took my time to look at the story. I did a bit of research, reading it, and finding out what really transpired as the president sent out, this letter to the National Assembly, especially to the House of Rep, where I saw the Speaker Abbas reading it and, speaking about it and the need for this further borrowing, $2.2 billion. That's running into trillions of naira external borrowing that the government is asking for. And one of the reasons I was able to get was the fact that, yes, it is for financing the budget deficit of 2024, which is not yet over. And these budgets are based on assumption. Last year, the assumption was that the dollar to the naira would be at $1 to 800 naira. and, you know, the expenditure was at that rate. And this year, we know how much the dollar to the naira has been, you know, fluctuating and on an increase, on an increasing pathway, about 1,600 to 700 naira as we speak today. And that's double the assumption of what was made in the 2024 budget. And that's the reason for which this external borrowing is being made. You know, that's the fact that's on ground. But then again, if we look at how much the government keeps borrowing and keeps using to finance, or how much of our revenue, in fact, is being used to finance our debt, for me, I think, or in my opinion, if I'm allowed to, you know, share my opinion, I think it's not so healthy, because what goes into our debt servicing is far way ahead of what goes into, you know, how much of what we're spending to grow the economy, talking about the infrastructure and all of that. Over 60% is being budgeted for debt servicing alone. And we're now asking for more to service these debts as well, you know. So I don't know how we would be marrying all of this that we're doing at the end of the day. Yes, I'm hoping that, you know, we're able to get our debt servicing to a certain level. And I wished that the government would have gone, yes, I'm going to borrow from the former president, Olusegun Obasanjo's way of how he was able, to solve our debt issue to a certain extent through the Pari Club debt servicing. And I wished that, you know, this federal government would have taken a cue. But then I know that they're also against, you know, how President Obasanjo has been against them with the very recent one that happened, where he accused the government of a reckless way of running the government. So, you know, it may be a good one, yeah, based on what they said, based on the last assumption, this is why we are borrowing. But then again, it calls for questioning.
You know, the last statement you made kind of summarizes what's my perspective on all of these. You have issues with somebody calling you into account of what you're doing. That means for you to be rebellious to what, instead of maybe, this is a past leader. This is somebody who ran this country and, like you said, dealt with our debt issue at the time. I think he should be asked how he did that successfully, instead of, you know, getting backlash on his comments. Because it seems like everybody that comments or shares their view about how this government is running the country. Look at what happened to George Ndume. Not Ali Ndume.
Akume or who?
Akume in the Senate. He was suspended. I mean, he got a whole backlash from the party. He's a member of Ali Ndume, rather. He's a member.
It's Aline Dume.
Yeah,
that's the senator representing Borno.
Exactly. He's an APC member. You know, he was just sharing his views and calling the president into account that, oh, you're not listening, you're not being available. And guess what? His own party meted out punishment on him. And former President Olusegun Obasanjo right now is getting backlash of, you know, from what he said about the way the economy of Nigeria is currently being run. The dollar is about 1,700 and something naira right now. It's fluctuating. Between last weekend, I exchanged the dollar about that amount in the black market to 1.7 to a dollar. And at the time this particular budget was talked about, we were running on 800 naira per dollar, assumably, you know. That's different. How are we going to reconcile that difference?
I guess that's why he's asking for more, really.
Exactly. How are we going to reconcile that difference? And let's not forget that this is not the first time we're borrowing. We've been borrowing and borrowing to run the economy. I was having a conversation with someone yesterday, and the person asked me, we're talking about this tax reform, also talking about this borrowing. That's about to be made, because, of course, the National Assembly is going to approve it. The Senate is going to approve it. No doubt about it.
I think it's even been approved.
Okay. So the president was saying, how are we going to generate money? How are we going to get money into the system if we don't do all of these increased taxation, borrow money? I said, it's so. Seal the leakages. We were talking about budget padding in the last 2024 budget. And nobody coughed about it. Somebody said he did an analysis. He paid some expert to dissect that budget and found out that there was so much budget padding. And we even highlighted it on the show. I talked about it on Developing Stories as of last year on this morning show. We analyzed it and we highlighted all of those padding. Imagine a borehole dug for millions of naira, hundreds of millions of naira, just one single borehole. We've not even talked about it. So there was so much padding going on there. If we can only block those leakages, would we actually have a need to
borrow more?
That's a problem. So
That's a very crucial one you have brought up there. Budget padding, which is one thing that has kept me exactly
dealt with that. We're going to borrow.
All right, let's bring in our colleague here. Mono Balagbobo is joining us now. Hello, Mono.
Hello, Yemisi. Good morning. Emmanuel, good morning. We are here again. Of course, it's not something that is new. Every time and then we will see government, ask for additional funding. Well, as logical as one will want to justify the need for that, keep in mind that the application of these funds, when these monies come, do they actually fulfill the purpose for which it is being borrowed? That is a really big question. And for a government that has been pretty happed on taxation, internally generated revenue, why do we need to borrow? So these are some of the questions that Nigerians are asking. But the conversation I'm really interested in this story is actually the MTEF FSP program that was forwarded, the social register that was forwarded to the National Assembly. Because, when you look at that bill, you ask yourself a question: are we really serious in this country? When was the last time we had the population census? So if we're talking about social registers, who are these people? When you look at the last time a population census was had in this country, is that the basis for register? Are we working with estimates from household surveys? These are serious questions. So when government says they want to social registers, I'm just wondering, who are these people? Are these real? Why is the question of a population census not a key concern for government? How do you plan without the right figure? We're estimating our population to be about 230 million. We are 300 million. Who says we can't be 300 million plus? And if we are adopting these registers in a bid to reduce the state governments who are not really handling some of these social problems being given out to people, especially palliatives, then what are we? We're just deceiving ourselves, honestly. We need to have a census with a proper population census. Then we'll be able to understand. We want to, come up with a sharing formula. The social, initiative of a thing will be a welcome development. But if we are not ready to have this conversation, I know when it comes to population census, there seems to be a whole lot of politics, because Nigerians, we are not honest with ourselves. No region wants to feel as though, want to have a report telling Nigerians that they are not as many as, they claim to be. But I feel that for proper planning, you need to know the number of people you're dealing with. And that way, the issue of social register will make sense. And we know that the National Assembly is going to approve this external borrowing. The National Assembly, for so many people, has been referred to as a rubber stamp assembly. So, a few people challenging it here and there, I don't think it's going to do anything. It's going to go through. They're going to get that money. But I do hope, for the sake of the masses who are in their need of poverty alleviation, will be able to benefit from these external borrowings. That is just my grave concern. Yemisi.
Yeah, thank you so much. You dwelt on that, the NTF as well as the social register, the social welfare register that the president is calling for. One would have thought it would have been a good one, but with that census, it would have made it much more easier at the end of the day if we had that. But unfortunately, it looks like every politician comes into power. There is no harmonization whatsoever. This one comes, does his own, and goes, and we leave it at that. At this stage, we do not have our own social data. You go into any country, and that is what they use. to plan for every citizen of the country. It's just so unfortunate that in this century, this is what we're still talking about. But hopefully, I'm just hoping, we always hope against hope. We're hoping it's government hope, renewed hope. And we hope that, something comes out at the end of the day.
I'm just going to be very straightforward. You talked about every government coming in with their own ideas. It is every government coming in with their own scheme and ways of siphoning money. That's what it is. Because how do you make, what Bodo just said, how do you make a proper plan if you don't have figures? Figures is what drives plan. Figures is what drives it's not just about motivation. Do you have the figures? If you're budgeting to make food now for an event, you need to know the number of people that are coming for that event.
I just feel many of them, as you've put it right.
It's
they
just
shy away from the proper things.
It's not shying away. It is totally ignored because there was no proper plan. You just wanted to put figures, figures
maybe
on
I didn't
something.
Use the right word.
Exactly. There's no.
And why you being angry at me? Am I?
You're not doing the right thing because you don't know the right thing to do. That's not it. That's not what it is.
All right. But then it behoves on the citizens to hold the government accountable. That is what we're saying. It is very crucial. We have to hold them by the jugular all the time to get them to do the things that they have promised. And that's the way we can hold them accountable to all of this matter and get things running in our country, no matter what situation we may be in. Well, as journalists, and that's our duty to also do. All right, let's get to the next one.
Before we move on to the next area, I just wish that, we could educate people more. I know the government is never going to do it. Educate people how to hold them accountable.
That's why we're here.
It's not. They're not going to do it. It's just our role, and that's why we keep doing this every morning. Anyways, moving on to the second story, the federal government of Nigeria says it is committed to addressing the challenges confronting the judicial system in the country. It said it will be done through strategic policies and other mechanisms that have an impact on improving democratic norms, including the rule of law, access to justice, and the minimum standards for enforcement of human rights. The Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Lateef Fagbemi, gave the assurance at the opening ceremony of the Network of Justice Sector Reform Teams Conference in Ilorin, Kwara State. He stated that the reform of the justice sector is at the core of the present administration's development agenda to propel judicial reforms to achieve sustainable socio-economic growth and investment, facilitated by the rule of law and tackle obstacles impeding the administration of justice in the country. Administration of justice in the country, that last line.
Got you.
It got me. Sometimes we really have to hold ourselves back from actually saying the things that is really in the mind. How do we actually have justice running in this country? There's been a lot of questions on the judgments, different judgment that has been meted out in different cases in this country. But of course, the judicial reform, a lot of people have been calling for judicial reform before now, and it's high time. Of course, it's been a long time coming. And I'm glad, first of all, that an administration is taking a good look at the judiciary and doing the necessary things. But let's not really overstretch it so that it won't look as if we're giving attention, because Nigerians will ask questions when you're giving so much attention to the judiciary instead of, other sectors.
Yeah, you will say attention because it looks like for years now that sector or that arm of government has lacked that attention that it required or it needed for a long time now. And because they are getting it now, or because a lot of attention is being focused on that sector, it looks like you say we shouldn't put too much attention on it, but then we need to. And it's not just that sector. Every other sector that matters.
Exactly. There should be a balance.
The development of, to human development in Nigeria. This is one sector that truly has lacked that attention. And I'm glad that, the government is, bringing that attention to it and getting the reforms, the needed reforms that should be or should have been as socioeconomic growth and all of that investment in the sector, and giving them the judiciary system that power or that autonomy to operate, which is what we've been calling for. And hopefully we will be getting that going forward with this reform, that we're seeing in the administration. We know that the FCT minister, Nyesom Wike, has been accused of what he's doing, building houses for.
Speaking of that, I'd like Mono to comment on that.
I know he would want to comment because he's smiling at the moment. Yeah, he's been accused of what he's doing and, usurping some kind of land because it's been redundant and it's not being used. And yes, now you want to use it to build quarters for the judicial, So a lot of questions there. But then, truly, I think they deserve what they are getting. Really. But then let's talk about accountability. You're getting all of this. We hope that they'll be allowed that autonomy to operate, that independence to operate, and not because of what they are getting from the government. So that's a very big question, that's a very big statement that I would be making in this regard.
Does anything really go for nothing in this country, Mono? Does anything really go for nothing?
I mean, when you were reading that story, I was just laughing because, honestly speaking, when you say you are addressing challenges, what are challenges in the judiciary? It's not a physical thing, like maybe you want to construct a school to address people who are not educated or to address employment. You want to create job opportunities. The challenges in the judiciary is not physical. It's a challenge. From the people, that is the challenge. So when they say want challenges, I'm asking myself, what kind of challenges to address? It's a challenge of trust. You look at the court judgments from the elections, from 2023 up till now, you talked about Wike getting houses for judges. You look at the 300% salary increase of judges, even though that is a welcome development. The challenges that the judiciary needs to address, it's a challenge of self-reflection. The judiciary in this nation needs to do a self-examination. It's a challenge of trust. When you took that oath to become a lawyer, to become a chief judge, to become a senior advocate of Nigeria, are you meditating on that oath of office that you took? Because that is the problem. And also, the politicians are also a challenge. So when you say you are addressing challenges, the real challenge are the individuals and the political class. That's where I'll stop.
Well, I would agree with both of you. Challenge of trust is one, and which has, overtaken every other challenge that might be there that we've not seen. But a lot of administrative challenges as well. They're suffering that. You go to court and you can't get mere paper or something to work with. The clerk cannot have, and he's asking you for money. So those are the things, that over the years have created or have instilled that wrath in that system. And if they were able to get that, probably, all of those things, all of this trust or confidence issue or, or credibility issue might not have arisen over the years. So because they don't have all of these needed tools to work with, that would have affected them over the years. But hopefully, if these reforms are being put in place, it makes it much more easier for us to put them to account. That's what I am saying here. I'm not saying that, their trust have not been. Yes, go ahead, Mono.
I'm just saying that is the real challenge. What I'm saying is that the real challenge are some of the things that I just mentioned. You talked about paper. For God's sake, we're in the 21st century. How about a paperless society?
If you don't have paper, how can you have computers? If they never even use the paper, how can they have computers?
We live in a world where a court sitting is done. We live in a world where a court sitting is done via Zoom, via.
And so maybe that's why we are getting the reforms now, and they can, maybe that's why we are getting the reforms now. Let's give it to them, But I agree with you. Challenge of trust is a big deal. It's a big deal in this business.
How do we win the trust of the people?
The politicians are also the challenge too. So they need to address their loyalty to the political class. I think they can stand up to the political class, hopefully.
The judiciary are really, they're not in I think they've lost touch of reality, that the people, if you go out there and ask the people on the streets, Nigerians, what they really think about the judiciary, let's just do a vox pop. Ask them.
You don't have to go too far. We also know.
So you understand,
we know
how
that.
do they feel about the judiciary? These are the real issues. When the judiciary will give judgment, and a lot of people on this are questioning because the facts are glaring. And then you come with this twisting of the way judges see things, the way the law says things. How do we have all those twisted judgments, twisted interpretation? And where I think interpretation of judgments and all of that should be clear for the layman to understand. But so the trust Nigerians, the amount of the level of trust that Nigerians have on the judiciary, that's the challenge we should work on. A lot of things, not just about the increase of salary, how much they increase the salary, no matter how many houses they give a judge or a person in the judiciary. Would that translate to a better character?
And hopefully these reforms would also work orientation at the end of the day. So we are hoping that we're able to get that.
A suggestion. I could take them a class on ethics.
Okay.
Why not? Thank you.
That will help.
That would be very interesting, to get you. Is it Justice Mono? We are going to be calling you now.
Ethics.
All right, let's head over to our last story on the developing story this morning, and talking about the Brazil event, the G20 summit, where Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu has hailed the creation of the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty, championed by President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva of Brazil. Tinubu described the alliance as pivotal in the global fight against hunger and poverty. He made this statement on Monday at the 19th G20 Leaders Summit opening session in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. He lauded the initiative and described it as the right step to address one of the world's most significant challenges. He said, and I quote, "The creation of this alliance marks a significant milestone in our global efforts to eradicate hunger and poverty, and it also sends a powerful message of solidarity to vulnerable populations around the globe by fostering collaboration between government, international government, and civil society. But this initiative offers a comprehensive approach not only to addressing immediate needs, but also tackling the structural causes and hunger and poverty." President Tinubu compared this global initiative to one of the 8 priority areas he outlined at his inauguration 18 months ago, expressing Nigeria's eagerness to adopt international best practices to advance its economic development. He reiterated Nigeria's readiness and capability to represent Africa within this elite. He called on the G20 to champion this noble ideal, having admitted the African Union as a group member. Well, that was President Bola Tinubu addressing the G20 summit in Brazil. And this time his focus was on the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty that is also pushing for and in agreement with that the G20 is looking at to help solve the issue of hunger in the land, which I know that many past presidents had predicted. One is former President Olusegun Obasanjo. I recall that year where he predicted this, and in a way, I had the fear that truly this was going to happen if something was not done. And it's just so worrisome for me that it is now that at this G20 summit that they're calling for this alliance, which should have been. But yes, I'm not saying it's not a good one. It's a good one. But then when we look at the issue of protectionism, some governments might actually be looking out for their own citizens first before they look out for all other citizens, and which I think, in a way, should be the first priority of any government. Look inward. See how you could also develop your own, if I would use the word, agrarian sector development to ensure that you provide the needed food to shore up or to prevent any form of famine that may be coming. Because this had been predicted a long time that we would be experiencing this if something is not done. So it's good that there's this alliance, but then we need to see the paperwork of how much it is going to work, how much of this collaboration, would filter down into most of these countries that actually need this food, especially especially Africa at this moment that we're talking about. One of the things he also talked about, just before I allow you to come into this conversation, is he used the opportunity to also ask that the UN allow Africa to have a two-seat representation on the Security Council. And he also stylishly used the opportunity to say, okay, Nigeria will represent Africa on a permanent seat basis and a non-permanent seat basis for probably another African country. And I think that would be a good representation if this alliance would work at the end of the day.
Well, I've always been a fan and a preacher of...
Just before you talk, the phone lines are open for all you to also join in on the conversation. The phone line, the numbers will be rolling on your screen. We want to get your views on all of the stories that we've talked about earlier. We talked about the harassment from the Nigerian army against, well, if I would use the word, innocent family, and how violent they were against him. We talked about the approval from the National Assembly with the latest borrowing that the federal government wants to go into. We also talked about, the government asking that the NTEF be approved as well as the social welfare program so that, they could have a proper representation of the people for this, these borrowings and all of that they are asking for. And now we're looking at the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty at the G20 Summit that our President, Tinubu, is also asking and encouraging to go into operation.
Yeah, so like I said, I've always been a preacher of developing homegrown solutions for homegrown problems. When we go to this international, meetings, talking about G20 and all of that, and every other one, we go there, we talk about solutions that really, can we really come up with solutions that would work, everywhere at once? I don't think we can. I think every country has its peculiar challenge. Nigeria, can we really say in Nigeria that we have that the hunger problem is caused by unavailability of food, or unavailability of land, or unavailability, or climate change, which some people are struggling about. Some people are talking and pushing the whole climate change issue. Can we really say that is the main problem? We have an issue of insecurity. A lot of people can go to the farms, but they cannot because of how they're being threatened. We have an issue of a government who does not really care about providing security for these people. So we have the land. There's a vast, arable land for you to plant on, and anything that you plant will grow. So you can solve the hunger issue with the snap of a finger by just planting, engaging in agriculture. Yeah. You understand? So when we go and talk about poverty in this country, is Nigeria really poor? If we manage our resources, because we are blessed, if we manage our resources properly and seal the leakages, would we be talking about poverty?
That was why I actually said it, and I'm sure Mono is also. I said it that why don't we deal with it from within first before we now say we want to accept a global alliance on this matter, because that is what every right-thinking president should be looking at to protect your citizens.
You're asking for Nigeria to have a place in the Security Council. What are you doing in your countries to solve the problems, to solve the challenges?
We have a call from
the country.
Mukaila, just before Mono comes in. Hello, Mukaila. Mukaila is calling from Lagos.
Hello,
hi, Mukaila.
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you, Mukaila. Go ahead. Okay, I guess Mukaila is having connection issues there.
Yes, Mono, yeah, you're trying to make, join in the conversation on that matter.
I think the issue of hunger is a global topic, and I don't think Nigeria alone can solve the problem given where we were at. But just to buttress on some of the thoughts shared by Emmanuel Abia, we apart from keening words, I feel that collaboration is going to work. But at the same time, if global players are going to come together to say, okay, we want to fight hunger, as a nation, what have we been able to do? So it's not as if they're going to partner with us to solve everything. We must have done our own homework. Then the places where we have challenges, then they can, they can come in. But I think this is just more of like, will I say, I don't want to use the word photo because I feel the global nations are already having a role to play. Because,
all right, Mona, let's just quickly take this call.
States.
Let's quickly take this call from Matthew.
Okay.
Matthew from Lagos. Harvey from Lagos. Hi. Hi, Basi.
Basi, can you hear us?
All right, we're not able to get Basi there, but yeah, we'll try to work on our phone lines and, you know, get you also to join in on all other conversations. But yeah, Mona, quickly wrap that up. We want to, you know, we have to go into the next segment right now.
Most definitely. I mean, so yeah, if we're going to get partners from outside the country to help us to address the issue of hunger, we must have something that we have done. So on what basis, what are other global alliances going to add to what we are doing? And the president made mention of the fact that this is one of his top key priority areas. But at the same time, when we are addressing hunger, is it all about sharing palliatives? Because if that is the alliance they are gathering for, then we are not serious. We are only joking. So if it's to collect maybe monies, or they will come together to say, okay,
right,
you know, the amount of money. I think it's an issue of intelligence, sorting out insecurity, just like Emmanuel Abia made mention of, and also empowering local farmers. But it starts from security. I feel that's the bedrock of hunger.
And I would add to it as well, getting our data, social data register right. And if we're able to do that, all of these issues will be addressed as every citizen will be carried along. All right, we'll anchor our developing stories on that at the moment. And after the break, on the front burner, we'll be looking at, you know, we've been talking about, you know, getting our data right. And the federal government is now saying that it wants to rebase our GDP as well as our inflation data. So we're asking, will rebasing solve Nigeria's economic challenges? That's what we'll be looking at when we return. And of course, our guest, Dr. Vincent Awani, Director of Research and Advocacy, would be joining us later on. You stay with us.
Some say learning is fun, but as a mom, I see how demanding it can be for my child. That's why I ensure he starts every day with a cup of Bonvita. Bonvita, prepare them to win every day.
The way we live and work has drastically changed and is making way to this new wave of a free and independent work culture of remote work, which is becoming more and more accepted. The world of freelance entrepreneurs or digital nomads. There's been quite a bit of research into the emergence and culture of remote work, especially digital nomads in different parts of the world. But there has not been much on the emergence of these group of workers in Nigeria and how that influences regular 9-to-5 work. What is remote work or remote working, and who is a digital nomad? Let's start with remote work. This is the practice of working from a location outside of a company's office. In some instances, it's a workforce strategy in which employees or workers split their time between on-site and remote locations to get their job done. In addition to employees, remote workers may also be vendors, agencies, and independent contractors such as freelancers, and they usually do their work from their homes, a coffee house or restaurant, or a co-working space. Digital nomads clearly engage in remote work and usually travel or move from location to location while getting their work done. Unlike traditional remote workers who could be employees and are affiliated to a company or business, digital nomads are freelancers, mostly tech entrepreneurs or social media influencers. They are usually self and work on contracted projects or project gigs online. In that sense, all digital nomads are remote workers, but not all remote workers are digital nomads, if that makes sense. Currently, 42% of African employees work remotely at least once a day a week. In Nigeria, remote working vacancies increased steadily between 2020 and 2021. Africa currently has a population of 1.37 billion, a figure projected to nearly double by 2050. It also has the world's largest and youngest workforce, with almost 60% of its population under the age of 25 and with over 250 million of its youth unemployed. Future employment is likely to depend to a great degree on digital technology. Globally, 75% of jobs will require advanced digitals by the year 2030. A research report by International Finance Corporation estimates that by 2030, 230 million jobs in sub-Saharan Africa will require digital skills, creating a $20 billion opportunity for investors and education providers to train the future workforce. Let's talk about co-working spaces for a moment. Co-working spaces have become an integral part in consolidating the workflow of the freelance entrepreneur or the digital nomad. It involves renting space in a facility for the space is shared by other people coming from very different backgrounds: entrepreneurs, artists, students, researchers. Regardless, they come there to work on their projects but are able to interact, everyone bringing their own talents or creative ideas. In trying to better understand the whole co-working culture, we paid a visit to the Bulb Africa, where we were given a guided tour on their co-working space facility.
Just show you here. Okay, so here currently we have cohort 5. They are having a training. We're training them in tech. They are trying to learn skills in data analytics, cybersecurity, product design, DevOps, Java.net, and the training is currently going on. They are having their bootcamp, .NET bootcamp. Here we also have where we work. We come in. We run a hybrid system. So we come in, we work, and we have days where we are off and on.
Okay. Is this for staff?
This is for staff, yes. For staff, yes. So we also have little pods where people can sit down. This is the Bulb Africa. We have little pods where people sit, do their work. People that are fellows, basically, that are part of the community.
Okay.
Yes.
Now this looks very interesting.
This happens to be my favorite spot in the office.
It looks interesting.
Yes. We have people. It has sockets where you just come in and sit and do your work.
Okay.
Yes, it's also like a co-working space too.
Is it supposed to give you the vibe?
It gives you the vibe of homely. Yes. The idea is to just create a homely vibe.
So if you're tired, you can come here, have a nap.
Yes, have a nap. And there are throw pillows. There's a TV.
Watch TV while you're.
There's also a kitchen here for the floor.
All right.
A microwave too to warm their food. Yeah.
Wow.
And then, so we have these guys here. You can see tech training. Like they want their children to have basic knowledge in tech. And so we're currently running a summer class.
All right.
Yes, and it's going virtually. So people within the age of 17, some of them want to come into the bulb, they want to have that feel of, I'm in a tech community, and also we are allowed to come in, use the desk. There's access to the internet for you as long as you're a part of the community.
That's awesome.
Yes. So this is an office. I think they're not around, but there are people here. Yeah. And for their companies. So probably you have a very small team, you don't have a large team, but you want to, you want a space whereby it gives you, okay, I need to work.
Yeah,
so this is something that's
privacy as well.
Yes, exactly. So this is perfect for you.
That's nice. Okay.
Ellen 24/7 lights up your day with unbeatable shows that guarantees absolute access to stories that revolves around politics, entertainment, and sports. Breaking news, plus detailed reports and analysis. At Ellen 24/7, where the story goes, we go.
Talking points here today are centered around these questions.
Yes, so we're looking at what does this really mean for Nigerians? It's very crucial. Do they even understand all of this rebasing issue and what it means to them? And how will rebasing GDP and inflation data impact the country's economic growth?
And also, what are the potential benefits and drawbacks of these exercises?
Well, it is very, very crucial to touch on all of this matter and facts here. And joining us as we look into the details of this significant economic shift and explore its implications for Nigeria's future is Dr. Vincent Owani. He is, of course, the strategy. Well, let me get that right. We'll get you more details. So, he's a strategy leader, West Africa at Safric Investment Group. He will be joining us, to delve more and give us the implications of all of this matter. But we'll be coming back to him shortly on all of that. But the main question is, what does rebasing mean for Nigerians? What do they understand by all of this? We went out to talk to Nigerians, but we'll bring you details about what Nigerians were speaking about. But let's get to Dr. Owani right about now. It's good to have you join us, Dr. Vincent Owani. Thank you so much for coming. It's good to see you again.
Nice to be here in your elegant studio.
Thank you so much.
This is my first time here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, let's get into the conversation. The government says it wants to rebase again. The last time I think I recall that we rebased was in 2014.
Yeah, April.
Exactly. And that was on the GDP. But this time it wants to rebase the GDP data as well as the inflation data. We've seen the movement of these very two fundamental factors to our economy. And the very first question I want to ask is, why a rebasing? Is it very important? Will it do anything to address these challenges, these hurting challenges of our economy?
Well, thank you very much. Without speaking for government, rebasing is an economic phenomenon. Some economists have said that every 10 years it's good to look at the possibility of rebasing key economic indicators. But where we are now is now more academic than practical. Last year or so, or 2 years, we did something about our unemployment, the way we can compute and calculate our unemployment, that drove our unemployment rate from 30% or 30-something% to 4%. So Nigerians' unemployment situation by number is even better than that in UK and US by the number. So for me, I think it's more of an emotional weight for the government, rather than solving the problem on the ground. In fact, I would call it more of giving a patient that is very sick aspirin or paracetamol than giving the patient vitamin or cook or going into surgery completely. So in 2014, we rebased our economy, and we saw that our GDP became the highest in Africa. Then $590 billion US, that was our GDP size. And some of us were very happy about it. But we warned that being the largest economy in Africa, without doing it organically was really dangerous. And we've seen where we are now. April 2014, our GDP number, $590 billion US. Today, it's about 252. So during this period, we've over 50% cut in our GDP number. So it's not about rebasing now. It's not about rebasing. For me, I don't think the rebasing is the issue. The issue is to solve the problem that makes our economy not work. To solve those problems that is making companies that are 100 years old, 50 years old, operating in Nigeria, packing their loads, going to other countries. That's the problem we need to solve, and we know those problems. So it is time to move from the cosmetics, to actual surgery.
Yeah, so Doctor, talking about cosmetics, so are you saying that this rebasing, this talk, all this talk about rebasing is just an artificial make-believe thing that, that doesn't really hold water, that wouldn't really prove what the economic situation of the country really is?
Exactly. Like I said before, Nigeria being the largest economy in Africa, being the largest country in Africa by population, have always had this penchant of also being the largest economy by GDP numbers. So I call it the war of GDP. We've always fought the war. So whenever we are not on the table as far as that war, winning that war, what we normally do is to go back to economy
methodology.
Which consultants come and help us rebase. And mind you, the National Bureau of Statistics, just like we have all over the world, the National Data Authority uses a recognized, globally approved by United Nations, what they call international standards for economic classification to compute our GDP. Today we have about 19 sectors. If you now break them into small activities, we are going to get about 60 different activities. That is what we obtain all over the world. But Nigeria will say, no, we are not looking at this. Let's bring into this. If countries that are leading the charge on AI and robotics decide to create a sector on AI, you can imagine what will happen. So we don't want to know the sector they want to bring in now and call it something. No, but I think it is time we grow our economy organically and allow the number grow organically. When we rebased our economy in 2014, we added about 50% in it. They just all of a sudden extra 50% to our GDP numbers. Extra 50%. And remember that this current administration have said that by 2030, their target is to have GDP size of 1 trillion. And I think it will be wrong for us to achieve that target through a mathematical bookwork behind the envelope calculation.
You know, I would have wanted to ask is this all about padding? Because we'll be using that word padding. But then let me allow my colleagues in Abuja, Mono Balagogo, to join in on this conversation before we talk about... Mono, Dr. Vincent is here.
My question is politics involved with this rationale? Because if, from what you're saying, it's more like the government wants to paint a good picture of the economy to their credit. What's your thoughts on that?
Okay, thank you. Just like I've said before, the size of a country's GDP, or even inflation numbers when it is low, what it tells investors outside the country is that, hey, at least let me study this economy. If you're in Japan, if you are in Australia, you're looking at our African economy, you want to look at which economies are large, which is the biggest economy. So clearly it has some good implication. But we have also now seen that investors are no longer swayed by the large economy type of conversation. What they're swayed around is ease of doing business, ability to get into the economy and get out, take out their money, ability to be safe when they get into that country. That's ease of this. That is more important to them. So what I'm trying to say is that the size of the country's economy will attract investors to look at, study your economy, but it's not going to bring them in. What is going to bring them in is actually the real fundamentals, indicators of ease of doing business. But to government, it is a bragging right. I made this economy as number 4 in Africa. Now, but Nigeria is number 4 in Africa by GDP size. This government, through hiring consultants, some of them are even our creditors, moving this economy from where it is back to number 1 now. It's a bragging right. It's good on camera for campaign purposes. So but it has not addressed any of our problems.
You're saying we can look good, we can look attractive, but we can't get these people in.
Yes, you can't get them in. You can't get them in. It's just like a beautiful man, a handsome man, you know, your packaging is fine. But when somebody gets close to you, you find out I can't deal with this person. That is what
So, you know, I use the word padding. Is it that we are padding these figures? Or are we truly using the right methodology to get these figures? Is it a true reflection? Yeah, I know you've talked about it. It's not a true reflection of our reality, really. But looking critically at the methodology that we use, can we say that, okay, we say we want to change the methodology, that's the idea, to capture the right figures of GDP and inflation. Are we using the right methodology? Or if we had relied on the past methodology, it's still the same thing? You know, those are the questions I'm trying to, think around. Are we doing the right thing?
You've used the word padding several times, and you can see I've been running away from that word because that word has been overused and trampled in Nigeria around budget padding. So I don't want to use that because padding in Nigeria is seen as something wrong going under the table, you know.
So is this something wrong going under the table?
Whenever we want to rebase our GDP or rebase some of these key indicators, we find a way to bring World Bank into it, bring IMF into it, to gain some mathematical credibility. That's the truth, so to remove the padding, because again, it is local and foreign audience that are going to consume this number. So we want to make it credible, and use, for instance, when we recalculated our unemployment statistics 2 years ago, a lot of things happened, and they said, no, the method we're using before is the wrong method. Countries are no longer using this method. And we moved our unemployment. Nigerians that are not working, that are capable, willing to work, we moved the number from 30% of the population to 4%. And that is not the reality on the ground at all. What has that solved now since then? What has that... the implication of some of those things is that some benefits you are qualified as a poor country, you are qualified to enjoy as a poor country, you will not enjoy it again. For instance, if they say that Nigeria is now $500 billion US after this rebasing of $700 billion, by statistics, if they do per capita income, and your per capita income is now more than Rwanda, more than even Egypt, more than, you are not going to get, citizens are not going to benefit on certain levels, So these are the reasons why it is always very wrong for a child to pass by just being awarded the 20 marks for attending the class. That's what we're trying to do now. So it's not about padding or illegality. They will look for methodology to explain what they're trying to do. But we're saying that our hands are dirty and full with things to do around getting our economy working, ensuring that the reason why Microsoft left Nigeria this year, why Unilever have almost shut down or moved their operation elsewhere, why PZ is leaving, why GlaxoSmithKline that was there over 60 years is leaving. These are the things we need to address. And what are those factors? Insecurity, crisis around FX, foreign exchange. These are the things we need to address. Power crisis, logistics and road and rail. These are so we need to move from the software to hardware as far as addressing these challenges is concerned.
The
software there, the software here is just to call some good professors and doctors to do some mathematics. In one.
And our trouble is not about mathematics at the moment. It's about reality. But no, yes, the doctor says our hands are dirty. We need to, do something to make it clean. All right, it does look like Mono is not here.
Yeah. I'm glad you really brought up the whole thing about, the way we would look, at least maybe these institutions will reconsider when we go to them to get loans. Because, when we are seen as a country that is now doing well, I'm just saying because the president has been trying to get an approval to get a loan. But that aside, now, how would this all rebasing affect the fiscal policies and, some other sectors? Like, specifically, you've talked about the transportation sector, you made mention of the rail. In what fiscal policies also? And can you give us a brief, maybe mention some sectors that will really be impacted by this rebasing?
Okay, thank you. We started with fiscal policy, and it's important that you mentioned that. Fiscal policy, every day or every week now, you hear the presidency send one memo to National Assembly to approve one loan or the other. Last week, it was 1.5 billion. I just saw in news yesterday, 1.7 billion US dollars. So our debt, last year, our debt, external debt, increased by 110%. Q1 this year, we have increased it again by 25%. So if we analyze that, we're going to also hit 100% increase in our external debt in 2024. The implication of that is that at this rate, by 2030, Nigeria's debt to GDP ratio, I'm still on physical now, Nigeria's debt to GDP ratio is going to hit something around 100%, which government is not happy. Nobody will be happy about that. But the only way to run away from such dangerous statistics will be to say, okay, let me go and increase the denominator inorganically. This denominator, that's how I say it's mathematics. Make sure that the GDP size is not big, where by the time you put debt on top of it or whatever, this ratio we're thinking around will favor the country. And again, you still have more chances or more avenue to borrow or look good. It's looking good on paper. So that is about fiscal situation. It will make our fiscal situation a little bit more brighter. But like I said, these are just building bubbles that will burst. It's a pyramid we are building. It's a pyramid that we are building. And we've seen the last one we did in 2014, where it landed us. Our GDP size then, after the rebasing, was 590 billion. It's now 254 billion. So we did not even increase by anything. It is crashing. Now, you will talk about sectors that will benefit or sectors that will not benefit. I don't think there is any sector that will benefit from this. The only thing is that one sector will just be thrown up and say, hey, we recognize this sector. For instance, the last GDP rebasing in 2014 threw up ICT. Seriously, threw up ICT.
Yes.
So for many years...
ICT as well as the entertainment sector.
Exactly, media and entertainment. Those are the glorious... I don't know what they're going to throw out now. And good enough, we saw ICT doing well. ICT contribution to GDP grew from 4%, 8% to 18%. It has moderated. The rate of growth at some point was 34%. It has also moderated. The GDP numbers released, I think, Q1 2024 is saying that sector is not doing well. It's still growing, but it is growing at a decreasing rate. So we don't know the sector that they want to throw out now.
I know.
But me, as an economist, as an analyst, I've looked around, I've not seen any sector that is going to be the showman or the poster boy at this time. I don't see that sector. What we need is a type of sectoral reform that will unlock either a dormant sector or a sector that is not existing at all. Like we saw when this ICT we just celebrated was unlocked by reform. The year 2000 reform that brought in foreign investors to invest in telecoms, and how that telecom helped us in different media, it helped us in finance and everything. There are sectors that we need to unlock. Whether we like it or not, solid minerals have not been unlocked. That is why we are seeing illegalities and terrorism flourishing at that point, in that sector. The transportation sector in Nigeria have not been unlocked. To be honest, even oil and gas sector have not been unlocked. We need those transparent, credible, massive policies that will be unlocked, that will unlock opportunities in one or two sectors. That is the, can I say, that is the magic wand we want at this point. And it requires deep thinking, it requires credibility, it requires absence of vested interest.
Well, from what I read, they are looking at the informal sector to capture, this GDP. But then let's bring in Mono here. Mono, are you there?
Yes, I'm there. We can dwell so much on the economics, and, some of the viewers may just be like, okay, how does this really affect my ability to purchase? And I'm looking at how this rebasing will go into, solve Nigeria's challenges, which is really the purchasing power of the average Nigeria, which is so affected by the fuel prices. I don't know if you can give us your thoughts on this.
The rebasing GDP and putting us at one, if we even look at what we had the last time, when we rebased GDP the last time, GDP number grew by almost 50%. So if you grew the GDP, we have now 252 billion by 50%, we'll still be landing somewhere around 300 and something. The implication of that is that Nigeria will become the largest economy in Africa again, topping South Africa. Does this impact the common man on the street, the ability to buy rice? I'm mentioning rice because in Nigeria we believe, or government believe, that rice solves all problems. Ability to buy this rice and bread, because these are the two indicators at least to capture the common man that must eat. Does it make the rice cheaper? Does it make the bread cheaper? The answer, and the big answer, is no. It doesn't. Is it going to bring down the price of fuel? Like you mentioned, the answer is no. And that is why we are saying that the GDP rebasing, inflation rebasing, is more of cosmetics. It's more of giving a very chronically sick person aspirin or paracetamol instead of, first of all, giving vitamin and preparing the person for surgery,
as you said.
Carried out by decent, qualified professional, that can deliver that serious surgery successfully.
That's a big question, and that's a big one that you've been able to unearth for us here. I would have to take a break, but just before we do that, we always want you to also join in on the conversation. And then earlier, we put out a poll on our X handle at LN24_7. And the question we asked is, wanted to know, what do you understand by rebasing itself? Wanted to know that. And do you think it was going to solve our challenges? I will bring up that post shortly for you. And that's it. Do you think rebasing will fix Nigeria's economic problems? Well, these are some of the answers that we have been able to get from audiences.
Of course, 25% think it will absolutely solve Nigeria's problem. There are a lot to... Like Doctor is saying here, it's explaining whether or not it will. Well, 75% of Nigerians say maybe a bit, because probably they don't really understand the whole methodologies that is involved. But the 0% said not at all. So a lot of people are in between by saying maybe just a bit, and some 25% are saying it will absolutely solve Nigeria's problem. So, Doctor, do you think this is a problem of education, educating Nigerians rightly on this particular methodology?
Yeah, I'm not going to be hard at all on our great audience. You know, but this is just to educate them or increase their knowledge that once beaten, twice shy. The 2014 rebasing, at least this was done when we were adults and already playing in this sector, harmed Nigeria instead of benefiting Nigeria. And analysts like me, some of my publications are online, warned and we fought that this is pure cosmetics. And 10 years down the line, this is where we are. By the time they rebase, it will show that inflation number is now lower than they are publishing and that GDP number is lower than their... Sorry, it will show that inflation number is lower compared to what it is now. So it will show that this inflation we are crying is quite good. And the GDP is too low. It's going to be higher. So it makes you look rich, but you are still suffering.
Yeah, so there's a bigger risk associated with rebasing in Nigeria. And yeah, we've been discussing about will rebasing solve our economic challenges. We're speaking with Dr. Vincent, strategy leader, West Africa at Safric Investments Group. We'll take a quick break and we'll be right back. Just stay with us. We're glad to have you back. You're watching This Morning on Ellen 24/7, and we've been talking about, that's on the front burner now, about will rebasing solve Nigeria's economic challenges. Dr. Vincent Owani has been, delving into this question for us and been able to break it down for us and tell us how important it is and how not important it is for the economy and solving the economic challenges. And of course, he says, well, most times, often than not, it's a cosmetic approach to the challenges bedeviling our economy at the moment. So yeah, at this point, this part of this conversation, we want to look at some other countries that have, tried this. Has it worked for them? And a proper solution. So what are those things we need to do to solve our economic challenges, especially with inflation, with our GDP, and capturing the informal sector that the government wants to, capture into this data or this figure that they have talked about. So yes, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us so far. So let's look at some other countries. We got the cards, of course, of some countries. We looked at Ghana, we looked at Kenya, here you have it, and India. They have rebased. They have used the methodology that they say is of best standards, and this is what they've been able to get so far. Yeah, he applied to those countries: India, Ghana, Kenya, maybe. But then back to our own. If we rebase, I know you've talked about it. The bubble would burst, right? But what are those consequences if we are not very careful? The government wants to do it this November, and warnings are beginning to, fly all around. What do you think? If they go ahead, what are the most, hurting consequences that may arise from this?
Yes, I agree with the numbers canvassed on the screen that when Ghana did it, when India did it, they experienced some GDP growth almost immediately. In fact, in Ghana, it made them to become investors' delight. They talked, they got a lot of loan from it. And we know where Ghana is now. We know where Ghana is. So they ate what they are now vomiting. So that's a challenge. It's a growth, and they say this uncontrolled growth, spontaneous growth, a growth you don't earn, a score you don't earn. Be careful the way you pick it. So India did not succeed by growing their GDP or just by rebasing. There are so many other things. What I'm trying to say here is that economic theory say that rebasing is not a bad thing, especially when you are doing it once in 10 years or something. But you don't do that and go home and start clapping for yourself. That is where and when the hard work begins. Because if you just do it and you start celebrating and throwing yourself around your world, you are going to run into a problem. Because the beginning of that is that if you just grow your GDP become big. When you have a big number, it's difficult to increase it. If you know how to calculate growth, additional plus the base times 100 over 1. So when the base is so big, what you're putting on top is so small. So if we grow our GDP now by just rebasing, next year the GDP growth may not be up to 1% or 5%.
But quickly, let me ask you, Doctor, the informal sector seems to be the bane of the issue here. How do we capture the informal sector in all of this matter?
Informal sector in Nigeria by the GDP methodology. Before coming to this program, I've spoken to at least one former statistician general, senior colleague in the analyst industry, and the method we're using to compute GDP in Nigeria today captures the informal sector eloquently.
So why did they make us feel like it's not being captured?
Eloquently. Like I said, our GDP computation follows the international standard for for classification of economic activities. RV 8. That's the last edition. Edition number 8, probably released by United Nations. We follow it eloquently, consistently, judiciously. Every country have a photo. We use output method to compute GDP, which has it's not just the companies that pay tax we cover in our GDP. We cover everybody, a lot of assumptions. So we don't want to be swayed by the double counting, because if you say that you now want to cover informal sector, so what we have now is going to be multiplied maybe by 65% because we've been told that informal sector in Nigeria is between 60 to 65%. That's a bit of a lame, lazy man's approach. And make no mistake that there is cost, even financial cost to this
calculation.
You're going to bring consultants abroad. You're going to pay them with borrowed dollar. It's not cheap. People think it's just, and it's not cheap. They're already running around the Ministry of Finance now and all the people in charge. At the long run, even long term, it is not the best way to have a sustainable economy.
Yeah, Doctor, just to justify this whole rebasing, here's what the government does. Now, they're saying it's a move aimed at improving the accuracy of economic data and boosting investor confidence. Also, it will improve policy accuracy through the use of more precise fiscal and monetary data. You talked about fiscal side. Now, they also said it will increase investor confidence with clearer and more reliable depiction of the economy, which you counted. You said it may not be the depiction. But what I want to dwell here is saying it's a move to improve the accuracy of economic data and in boosting investor confidence. And also, they said it will enhance global comparability by aligning Nigeria's economic indicators with international benchmarks.
Unfortunately, I beg to disagree. Investors' confidence on the Nigerian economy will be boosted when investors will easily predict that Naira to exchange rate will be X, and it is X by December this year and by December 2025. Investor confidence will be boosted when they know that inflation will just move by 3%. Things that are certainty in the economy. Investors' confidence will be boosted when Nigerian roads and Nigerian rails are working efficiently and smooth, just like we have all over the world. Investor confidence will be boosted when Nigeria is able to embark and execute and deliver a signature infrastructure project. Over the last 10 years since the last rebasing, there is no world acclaimed infrastructure project that we have executed in Nigeria at world standard. Thank God for the East-West Road we're talking about now. But will it be delivered at the standard and the timeline? No, that the world will recognize it. Which reform, like I said before, investor confidence will be impacted if we embark on a credible, big and bold reform that unlocks a dormant sector, a new sector like we saw what happened between 1999 and the early 2000s in telecoms. That is what boosts investor confidence. Even if our GDP rose to 1 trillion like we want to do mathematically now, and drag down inflation numbers from 34% to whatever they want to drag it down, investors are not stupid. There's a book called Investors Are Not Stupid. They are very wise. They know when their head is being used or about to be used, both local and international investors.
Mono?
Okay, Doc, now, as much as we want to say, okay, genetic approach, I mean, you look at women with good character and a lot of potential, they still put on makeup to look good. So I want to ask you if there is a middle ground with this rebasing, such that as much as we want to do the cosmetic approach to make our economy look good, but at the same time, we don't downplay the realities on ground about the economy. Is there a middle ground to this that the government can adopt?
Yes, clearly. Even for the faith workers, they read in the Bible that faith without work is dead, null and void. We are only using this opportunity, this platform, to sound alarm to the government that we have done this thing you have done before. Other countries that have done it did not just do it and fold their hands. They did other things that help to sustain that GDP, and give credibility to the numbers. That's all we're saying. What we have seen so far over the last 10 years, not just this administration, the administration that followed 2014, and this current one, there is nothing in the behavior, character, and approach that shows that a bold, credible reform is on its way. That will incentivize investors to give a boost to the planned GDP rebasing and CPI rebasing. That's all we're saying. So that it is not just having something to go around that we have done it. Investors know that the only time Nigeria's GDP is the biggest in Africa is when we rebase.
I recall that time, when we're the biggest economy in Africa, we're shouting by GDP and all of that over South Africa. There was that war between the two countries, Nigeria and South Africa, and then South Africa again took over, and I guess that is why we're, doing what we are doing at the moment. But then let's go to solution. It is very crucial. It does look to me like the policymakers are grappling at straws, and they do not know what to do. Now, let me come to you. What should we be doing? What's that first thing to address these challenges? We've asked economists, we've asked researchers, we want to ask you as well. What should be that thing that we should be doing? Because it does look like we do not even know where to go. I know in those days, economists would go back to the drawing table. Maybe that's what they are doing. Yeah, they want to go back to the drawing table. Rebasing is not the right approach at the moment.
I don't subscribe to the fact that government doesn't know what to do. If you look at the caliber of people that have been in government in this country and those ones there now, I don't believe they don't know what to do. I think the political will to do it is where we have challenge. And that political will is not that the guys there doesn't want to do it because they're political, but that willingness to satisfy other interests. I don't know what happens when people get to Aso Rock offices. I don't know because
you were there before.
I've not been there before. But these guys, they know, and it would be unfair to say they don't know. So the issue is, what legacy do you want to leave? But let's go into what they need to do again. But they know, but let's remind them again. Classify our problem into quick wins, medium term and long term. and see what you can do about quick wins. And these quick wins, if you ask me, I've done a research by asking about 75 companies that left Nigeria or shut down in Nigeria and relocated to other economies since 2020. Big companies. Why are you guys leaving? And they give reason, A, B, C. Some of them have operated in this economy for 100 years, some 95 years. So they are not baby, they are boot, their hands, their boots are on the ground. They face so many economic crises. They face so many recessions, but they survive. Why are you guys living now?
So what did they say?
They say that the insecurity level is unprecedented, it's on record, worse than what they saw in Civil War. Worse than the Civil War period. The same thing with exchange. The two major reasons, apart from logistic issue, power issue that we have been dealing with, of course, the power issue is getting worse. Logistics and road, they are getting worse. But the two major issues is security of life and property. During the Civil War, it's all about eastern part of the country that was safe, where every other place was relatively safe. But everywhere in Nigeria now, it's unsafe for investment. If you want to operate there, the cost of securing your property and lives of people there outweighs the return we are going to expect. So investors, like I said before, are not stupid. They need money. They invest.
They know these things.
So that's a major issue. Then the currency problem. Ability to bring in money into the country and take away the money when you want to take it away at a particular determined rate. If we can solve these two issues, which is not a rocket science, I think we'll move forward.
Well, we know all of these things. Moving forward is also being accountable and transparent. You talked about willpower and to do the right thing. How can we be, while we're trying to be rebase and apply this cosmetic, there's some level of looking inwards that we need to do. There's some level of transparency that we need. Do you see this government being transparent enough with Nigerians? By saying, yes, we are rebasing, but here are the reforms. Because we've been embarking on several reforms. The central bank governor have been encouraging us that, okay, from one reform to the other, from one policy to the other, we're going to move. But every time we make these decisions, it doesn't seem like we're making progress. We talked about the devaluation of the currency. We talked about other things that have been done. You see this government as being transparent enough, while engaging in this process.
Since the return of democracy in 1999, we've always been a reforming country. We've never stopped reforming, to be honest. Nothing is new. But what are those reforms that an average Nigerian will remember that impacted their life directly, including the ones in the village? Telecom sector reform, whether we like it or not. Even pension sector reform. And you can keep on talking about them. So we are now saying, what has the current reform around petroleum, oil price and all those things, have we been very transparent? Because you talk about transparency. I'm not going to answer yes or no. Nigerians will answer. But up until now, we still doesn't know how much fuel Nigeria consume every day, the price of land, all those issues around Dangote Refinery, NNPC, there are confusion here and there. So the issue is that it is difficult to talk about transparency without looking at how the policy you have implemented affected the man on the street. The man on the street. When the regulation happened, a lot of things about palliative, rice, I talk about rice, and rice is not saying, please leave me alone. Do other things. All those palliatives, have they been able to reduce or assuage hunger? The answer is no. Bus will come, CNG, all those things. Remove VAT on this and on that. None of those policies have assuaged the challenges on the street, which means it's not working. And if you embark on the policy since May 29, 2023, this is now almost December. So we've done it 18 months now. It's time to look back and take some stock and reflect. Because if you're going to a particular place and you know that you are taking a wrong channel, I think it's better you look at the reflection. So it's not about being transparent. Nigeria, even though it's about what will impact the common man. It's very difficult for Nigerian masses to believe what an average politician says. It's very difficult. It's been like that. But once you do something that after a while, they're seeing the positive impact. Of course, and you remember that they say poor people don't even know what they want that would be good for them. The politicians think for us, but if they think and implement and it's not working, over time you see that, yeah, these guys, it's not working. So far, we need something fresh.
Quickly, just before we round up on this, let's allow Mono take the last question. Mono, very quickly. All right, let's wrap this up. We could hardly hear what Mono is saying. I'm sure he'll be adjusting his audio. But yeah, what's your last word on this matter? We've talked about, the solution, which is you talked about the medium quick wins, the medium term and the long term, and the government knows what they should be doing. What would be your last word on this matter?
My last word is that no more, even if we shout from here on top of our voice, this government we have now, once they decide, they do. So I believe that no matter what Nigerians we say, they will still go all the whole to rebase whatever they want to.
Are you saying they're not listening to Nigerians?
So as they are going to do what they want to do, they should know that rebasing is not the A to Z of the challenges. Please deal with the security head on. Restore confidence around foreign exchange market. These two are very, very important. And see that Nigerians can move from one place to the other with a bit of ease in transportation and a bit of security addressed. Finally, the power challenges. The power challenge is a very big issue.
We must say thank you so much, Dr. Vincent Onwani, strategy leader, West Africa at Safrix Investment Group. Thank you so much for coming to our studio on this very matter. We appreciate your time with us.
Thank you very much for having me. Great one.
Yes, and that's it on the front burner. When we return after News Now, we're looking at digitalization of our land. The government seems to have entered a particular partnership on addressing the challenges with our land. So we're looking at the prospects and the challenges to that. Do stay with us. You're watching This Morning on LN 24/7.
LN 24/7 lights up your day with unbeatable shows that guarantees absolute access to stories that revolves around politics, entertainment, and sports. Breaking news, plus detailed reports and analysis. At LN 24/7, where the story goes, we go. LN 24/7 lights up your day with unbeatable shows that guarantees absolute access to stories that revolves around politics, entertainment, and sports. Breaking news, plus detailed reports and analysis. At LN 24/7, where the story goes, we go.
What makes the political system what it is today? What are the recurring issues?
Order.
The tussle for power.
An extremely problematic area.
The tension. The instability of the system. Join LN 24/7 as we take you inside the local and international political arena in the world of politics.
Apologize for saying that I was corrupt. I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows he's a liar.
Watch politics now on LN 24/7.
Don't miss Politics Now on LN 24/7.
Stay up to date with LN 24/7. LN 24/7. With news, politics, business, sports, and more on LN 24/7. Where the story goes, we go.
You're watching This Morning on LN 24/7. Let's take news now. We start with this. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has announced a restructuring of the State House Media and Communications team aimed at streamlining the government's communication processes. This restructuring was announced in a press statement released by the Special Advisor to the President on Information and Strategy, Bayo Onanuga. In this new restructuring, Sunday Dare, previously Special Advisor on Public Communication and National Orientation, now assumes the role of Special Advisor, Media and Public Communications. Also, Daniel Bwala, initially designated as Special Advisor, Media and Public Communication, has been reassigned as Special Advisor, Policy Communication. In addition, the role of Special Advisor on Information and Strategy held by Bayo Onanuga remains intact. The presidency clarified that these appointments signal a departure from the traditional model of a single spokesperson. Instead, all three special advisors will collectively serve as spokespersons for the government.
Now in Benue State, the Benue State Governor, Reverend Father Hyacinthe Alia, has approved a minimum wage of 75,000 naira for workers in the state. The governor will disclose this after a meeting with organized labor representatives in Makadi. He said that the remaining 3 months of the 5 months backlog of arrears promised to the union will be paid as budgeted in the 2024 budget, along with the minimum wage with effect from November 2024. Now, reacting to the governor's approval on behalf of the Benue workers, the chairman, NLC Benue State Council, Comrade Tezungu Ugbe, and that of the Negotiation Council, Aloysius Umaja, both appreciated the governor for approving 75,000 naira for the workers of the state, stressing that the increment will make an improvement in the lives of the workers and assured of the workers' continued support to the present administration.
The moment the federal government made this pronouncement, I was one out of the 36 governors, the very first person to give my willingness, the state's willingness, to go with the swing of the new minimum wage. And I'm happy to announce that the new minimum wage of 75,000 naira is being approved. We know that you as civil servants had gone through so much. It was our intent even to cushion the effects of the hardships on workers. And so you may recall, we had said we would take care of 5 months of your arrears. I know we had taken care of 2 months and 3 months are remaining. With this increase, what we intend to do is we would spread this into January. So each month you receive your salary, your arrears, and arrears of 1 month is accompanied. In the next 3 months. In fact, let's make it in the next 2 months. So we'll take care of the remaining 3 months arrears. And I think it would make a lot of common sense. Since I was even the first governor that, declared our intention to do this willingly, but is doing it kind of 1-2 months later. Your 75,000 minimum wage is beginning this month.
I'm so happy as the chairman of NSC and as the chairman of NAS level, because this thing has been lingering for quite a long time. And not just only 75,000 naira. He has also signed the 30,000 naira adjustment or minimum wage that was on the ground. So I'm happy, and workers of Benue State are also happy. No matter how little the increase is, And no matter how bad the fuel subsidy is, we know that at least it will make a small improvement on the lives of the workers.
We are not singing praises of you, Your Excellency, but we know that since you came on board, we have witnessed tremendous change in Benue State. As far as the civil service was concerned, before your emergence, we've had a series of problems in the state. But since you came, no civil servant in Benue State has received salaries beyond 23rd of every month. And as a result of this, it has placed us on a good foot that will be able to plan, even though the resources became very small because of the introduction of the removal of fuel subsidy. We want to tell you today, Your Excellency, that the workers of Benue State are proud of you because of your infrastructural development that you started in the state. When you came on board, you began with massive constructions of roads, streets, which are not just construction roads, but quality ones with quality drainages.
Out of Nigeria now, Somaliland's opposition leader, Abdirahman Siro, has won the region's presidential election, according to local news outlets. It reported the Electoral Commission as saying the leader of the opposition, Wadani Party, won 64% of the vote. Incumbent President Musa Bihi Abdi, who was seeking a second term, won 35% in the polls, which took place last week. Both candidates promised to strengthen democracy, boost economic growth, and gain the international recognition Somaliland has sought for 33 years. It was the region's fourth presidential poll since it broke away from Somalia over 3 decades ago. Somaliland has since sustained its own government, currency, and security structures, despite lacking global recognition, which has restricted its access to international finance. The region has built a stable political environment in sharp contrast to Somalia's security struggles.
Still on the foreign scene, tens of thousands of people took to the streets of New Zealand's capital, Wellington, on Tuesday in what was likely the largest ever demonstration in support of Maori rights. Now, they were protesting against the proposed law that will reshape the country's founding treaty between the indigenous people and the British Crown. Lawmaker Anna Rauhiti Maipi Clark of Te Pāti Maori, who was suspended from Parliament after a day after she stood up during the vote last week and began ringing aka, spoke to the crowd amid cheers.
Been suspended for 24 hours and not let in the gates to the debating chambers. But the next day I showed up outside the steps with 100,000 of my people. Marching with our heads held high and our flags waving with pride. And we will never ever have to decide who can mess with our rights and our sovereignty as an Indigenous people here in Aotearoa. We are the kingmakers, we are the sovereign people of this land, and the world is watching us here. Not because of the system, not because of the rules, but because we haka.
Well, Russia has begun mass production of mobile bomb shelters that can protect against a variety of man-made threats and natural disasters, including radiation and shockwaves. The Emergency Ministries Research Institute made this known. The Cub-M shelter looks like a reinforced shipping container. It can give some protection against radiation, shrapnel, debris, and fires, and can be deployed in Russia's vast northern permafrost, according to the State Institute. The standard unit accommodates 54 people, but additional models can be added. The war in Ukraine is entering what some officials say could be its final, most dangerous phase, as Moscow's forces advance at their fastest pace since the early weeks of the conflict in 2022, and the West seeks to shore up Ukraine. The Institute did not link the move to any current crisis, although the announcement came just as the administration of U.S. President Joe Biden agreed to allow Ukraine to fire American long-range missiles deep into Russia.
Now back home, still in the news, the Speaker of House of Representatives has emphasized the value of the marine sector intervention in Nigeria in improving the country's economic diversification efforts to boost economic growth and development. The Speaker of House of Representatives, Tajuddin Abbas, says the focus on maritime intervention is firmly rooted in the legislative agenda of the 10th House of Representatives, particularly in the goals of economic diversification and agricultural development. He said this at a public hearing on the Nigerian Marine Corps Bill by the House Committee on Navy at the National Assembly Complex in Abuja. He said that the hearing represents another step in the shared commitment to the democratic process and collective resolve to advance the security, stability, and prosperity of Nigeria.
We're still talking business. The Central Bank of Nigeria has warned members of the public to be courteous of the activities of fraudsters purporting to be in receipt of award letters of contracts related to construction works and special financial interventions on behalf of the bank. The Apex Bank, in a statement signed by the Acting General Director, Group Director, Corporate Communications, Akama Sidi Ali, described the claim as false. The CBN maintained that it has not authorized public notices of such interventions on social media platforms or any other news outlet. It therefore encouraged the public to remain vigilant and promptly report any suspicious activities or publications to the relevant law enforcement agencies. Well, that's news now. After this timeout, don't forget you could get more information on our social media handles as well as our LN247.news hub. But after this time now out, we'll be looking at the matter of land digitalization. We're looking at prospects and challenges. To stay with us.
Stay up to date with LN247. LN247. With news, politics, business, sports, and more on LN247. Where the story goes, we go.
LN 24/7 lights up your day with unbeatable shows that guarantees absolute access to stories that revolves around politics, entertainment, and sports. Breaking news, plus detailed reports and analysis. At LN 24/7, where the story goes, we go. At LN 24/7 Sports, football just got better. For the fans. For loyalty. For the tackles.
Supernatural goal from Lionel Messi.
For the celebrations. goals. For the love of the game.
But yes, it's business this morning, and this time we're focusing on Nigeria land digitization, and we're looking at the prospects and challenges. Of course, Dotun Bamigbola will be joining us. He's a senior partner, Bamigbola Consulting, estate surveyors and valuers. But just before he joins us virtually, let's look at the story around all of this now. Well, the federal government has announced an exciting partnership with the World Bank to revolutionize the way land transactions are conducted. That's a good one. Say, but the Minister of Housing and Urban Development, Architect Ahmed Musa Dangiwa, revealed that this groundbreaking collaboration will birth a national land digital system, LNDS, aimed at optimizing land transactions and unlocking a whopping 300 billion naira in untapped economic potential. The NLDS is expected to tackle long-standing challenges in land registration, protecting property rights, and increasing formal land transactions from less than 10% to over 50% within the next decade. All right, let's talk details of this transformative partnership, I bet, and explore its potential impact on Nigeria's economy and citizens. All right, let's welcome estate surveyor and valuer, Dotun Bamigbola, senior partner, Bamigbola Consulting. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Bamigbola. We're glad to have you on this particular segment. But first of all, let me get your opinion on all of this. What was your reaction to this latest news about this partnership on the National Land Digital System for land transactions in Nigeria?
Well, thank you very much for having me here. I'll say that it was a good one for me because the key factor for real estate development in the country, which of course, like I said, will free up debt capital for investment and all of that, is land titling. And being sure that that land is actually in the appropriate location. Is not that you have one coordinating flag here and there and all those things are up and about. There's also, while I don't believe so much in a unitary system in doing things as a person, I believe there's need for diversity, like we have the states operating the entire thing. I also believe that there should be a similitude of similarities around this, in spite of the peculiarities that each state may have. So having something that will bring everybody on board like this is something welcomed, is something that I've always, as a person, and I know the institution I've represented and I still represent, and also a number of people in the real estate industry, I've always looked forward to having. So if this can be brought up and with World Bank assistance, that means the funding will be easily provided once the terms are agreed, and definitely have the international best practices put in place in all of this. So that means that what we see out there internationally can also be implemented here. So it's quite welcomed and appreciated that the government is going in this direction.
Just before, by the way, Mr. Bamigwala, my colleagues are here, Emmanuel as well as Mono Balagogo in Abuja. They'll be joining in on this conversation. But just before I let them in, let me quickly ask you, I know this is not in place at the moment, but currently you may want to share a bit of your experience with us on how it works at the moment as a real estate expert as well as a surveyor. Share a bit of experience because people want to hear your personal experience on how it works with the lands in Nigeria.
Okay, that's nice. And let me quickly point out that most of Nigeria's land is not digitalized. As a matter of fact, land titles to title to land in Nigeria is below 10%. There are various reports that put at below 10%. Some reports put it at 5% thereabouts in terms of land title coverage that are registered. So you have various land registries in various states and in Abuja. The Land Use Act being the overarching reform policy, which is part of our constitution, governing control. Before the Land Use Act, we had communal land, family land, and all of that. However, with advent of the Land Use Act, all land are now trusts in each state by the governor, the person of the governor of the state, not the government. So that gives the government a lot of power, enormous power to control how land is being administered based on the Land Use Act promulgated as a decree in 1978. Now, based on that, if you want to do any transaction on land, you have to register it with the governor. Either it's a mortgage, either it's a sale, or some long leases, you have to register with the governor of the state. And that is where, through the land registry. And that is where you take off if you are going to develop. Now, the process of doing all of this is heavily bureaucratic. And from state to state, I will not want to suffer so many states by mentioning their names now. But some states will claim that I have 3 months for processing of a title. In case you buy, I want to register your title. They'll say you have 3 months to do it, but 3 months can be 3 years, 2 years, 1 year. Some states, I will credit some northern states, especially the northeastern states. Some of them do this within 3 months. Quite a number of states are between 1 year to 3. There are some states that will take 4 years, especially if the governor is not ready to sign anything. Remember, I said it is the power is domiciled in the person of the governor. So all land, since the land use decree has become a 99-year lease from 1978, if you have a whole title, a conveyance, a land certificate, as it was then, and you now have what is called a deemed grant. So all freeholds, leasehold, everything, and the number of years according to the Land Use Act. As some people argue that that has not been tested. 99 years is a long time, but we're getting close. From 1978 till now, I think we're already in about 50 or thereabout. So that has been the process. It's been difficult converting your land wealth by title into something you can use to facilitate investment because of the delays and all processes.
All right, thank you so much. Yeah, Mono, Mr. Bamigbola has been able to paint a picture of what obtains now with the land, operating system in Nigeria. So, yeah, over to you.
All right, now, sir, I would love you to talk on the fact that if we actually have skill and power to be able to put this together, and if the current system, those who are in charge of the current system, are allowed to see the light of the, because every time there is a new method of doing the powers that into exists. What are your thoughts?
Hearing you, please. Can you come again with your question?
Okay, me now. Can you hear me clearly now?
Yes,
hello,
better.
sir.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, I said
I can hear you now.
Will you say that we have the skilled personnel and the right technology required to fully implement this? And will the powers
can you come up,
that be allow this to play out?
I heard the part play out. Can you come again with your question, please?
All right, Mr. Dawson, sir, I think what my colleague is trying to ask is that do we have the skilled personnel, to implement this process? Are we ready? Basically, are we ready? Do we have the skilled personnel? And also, if there would be ease in allowing this particular policy see the light of day, because we may be having a situation where there would be so much bottlenecks from allowing the implementation of this particular process of digitalization of the land.
Okay, I think I get you now. If there are personnel that are able to on ground,
yeah.
And the second thing,
how do we deal with the bottlenecks?
How do we deal with the bottlenecks?
Yeah.
Okay. Firstly, there are quite a number of personnel on ground. A lot of people, especially in my own profession, estate surveyors and valuers, quite a number of us have honed our skills in GIS rollout and land digitalization. They are certified in this field. Just for example, the head of the GIS, EdoG's GIS is an estate surveyor. We have some people to do masters in this field. In Kaduna, we have one of the key directors there. I won't know the rank Kim, who is also an estate surveyor and valuer. We have quite a number of people in land surveying who are versed with GIS as well, because it's a template that works them, because it goes to map out the land. Is part of their responsibility in terms of doing land, so everybody is able to see the allocation or the map of the land, the cadastral zoning and all that, which Abuja, like yesterday, as the golden standard for Nigeria. You have a number of land surveyors and estate surveyors and valuers working in the AGs in Abuja, and they play their various roles. So they pass around. There's no doubt about it. The issue is the political will to roll out. And AG in Abuja has been in existence for over 20 years. As we speak, that should have cascaded other states. It should have been out to other states or similar development. But so far, we only have 10 states in Abuja. So that means apart from Abuja, you have 9. So there's a need for political. Have the case of not signing out COO of vote. So no, the wrong government here, the person of the governor. So they take that decision. Are you with me? The governor takes that decision. If the governor is not seeing benefit for his state, it does not have this rapport with technology or does not see so much in it, then that state may be backwards in terms of putting this. So the first is political will. They are there, and if they are not there, they can be gotten. You can get them. You can get them. If the governor decides to send some people for training in his state to acquire this knowledge, it will be done. And are you with me? You can also learn from existing in other states. There was a time the past governor of Lagos State, I think that was Ambode, when he came on board, I think there was a time he signed about 300 CFOs through eCFOs. Was it 300,000? I don't know. That he could sign up through eCFOs. That was when Lagos State started the eCFO process then. You need to find out what about continuing it. So a lot of issues bother so much on, firstly, political will. If the political will is there to drive it, then the civil service will equip itself, or you equip the civil service to deliver on it. If they don't have that capacity, you bring in other people to support this the civil service, either as consultants or as political appointees to help in the rollout and implementation. So that's what can be done to take care of these bottlenecks. And there's also, they put a timeline to it. It has to be delivered by time, by so time. And I think that's one of the key things that the involvement of the World Bank is going to bring in. But there must be political will.
I'm glad that you talked about political will to do all of this, to get it done and all of that. But yeah, before we take a break, we'll take a break. But then...
I'm not hearing you, I think...
Can you hear now, Mr. Bamigbola? We'll take a quick break and we'll be back to talk more about this, and especially looking at the public and private partnership to ensure that this digitalization is a seamless process at the end of the day.
Stay up to date with LN 24/7. LN 24/7. With news, politics, business, sports, and more on LN 24/7. Where the story goes, we go.
Glad to have you back. We've been looking at Nigerian land digitalization, the new partnership with the World Bank to ensure that, you know, the land system is being digitalized to address the challenges and, of course, the benefits that would come with it. And we've been speaking with the estate surveyor and valuer, Dotun Bamigbola. Mr. Dotun, thank you so much so far for sharing your insight with us. Now, earlier, you were talking about the political will. If it is there, these things will be done right. And you made mention of some states, especially Lagos State, that deployed the system for COOs and all of that. Now, let's look at the public and private partnership to ensure that this digitalization process, when it comes on board, it is seamless. How do you think these parties, the public and the private, can ensure that we have a smooth run, a smooth implementation at the end of the day? All right, we'll get back to Mr. Bamigbola as soon as we have him to help us with that particular line of thoughts. But yeah, we're talking about digitalization and the effect of it. It's interesting that this particular government is looking the way of technology, the way of digitalization to ensure that there's an harmony, there is a seamless operation to all of this. It's interesting, and we hopefully when it is being deployed, it's a World Bank partnership development at the end of the day. Okay, Mr. Bamigbola, I'm told you're back. Yes, just before you went off, the question I was asking is about the public-private partnership to these developments and how it will benefit the real estate sector at the end of the day. How do you think we can, you know, squeeze the benefits of public-private partnership to ensure that there is a seamless operation when this digitalization comes into play?
Well, thank you. That can be worked out. You remember I said there can be, the government can bring in consultants. The last speaking on this, so it's quite possible. The issue is we are all safer having government taking full control of it, because government is a custodian under law, one. Number two, everybody has a stake in government. You know, the democratic opinion that, yes, how do you call it now? That the people are the government themselves, so everybody is involved in that. So having a PPP arrangement can be done if you have a sector driver who is ready to take up all those responsibilities without taking overriding authority, and is ready to partner with government. They have the technology, and just like you're doing a PPP arrangement with rules and all those things, they have a time they have to step out of it. And by the time they step out of it, government takes full charge. Meanwhile, along the line, because it's our commonwealth, every state government is looking if they're involved. You have a state government that cannot handle it on their own. They have their checks and balances to ensure that that private sector player is not taken on due advantage. Can be worked out agreements will drive it and ensuring that those checks and balances. But the key thing, either you are doing that or government is ruling this out on its own. It's very, very advisable for government to engage either on board of those parastatals that will run this process, or through representatives on those boards, or through direct engagement with those bodies as getting their inputs, to engage those professional bodies that I mentioned as very important: the land surveyors, NIS, the estate surveyors and valuers, the town planners. You have these people within and outside government, but it's also good to engage the private sector on this from bodies to ensure that you have that input from them and have a richer and maybe more beneficial rollout plan and implementation process.
All right.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Dotson. Let's talk about the regulations. If there's one thing that we know in this country, it is not to really trust. Nigerians have learned not to really trust the government because you talked about, depending on the government so far. What are the regulations that could be put in place to ensure a smooth process, to ensure a smooth process for smooth transition into this digitalization process?
Can't hear you. Can't hear you.
All right, Mr. Dotson, what I'm saying is that one thing Nigerians have learned so far over time...
I didn't hear all you said, please.
Can you hear me now?
Can you take your question again?
Is it better now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now, Mr. Dotson?
Can you take the question again?
All right, what I'm saying is that if there is one thing Nigerians have learned is, you talked about the dependency on the government. Nigerians do not really know how to over-depend on the government. I'm just talking in the aspect of regulations. My colleague had mentioned a partnership between the private and the public sector. What regulation can be put in place to ensure a smooth transition into digitalization of land so that we don't have any challenge whatsoever? All right, I think we have network issues there. We would really like to have you back, to continue with the discussion, Mr. Dotson. We talk about regulations a lot in this country. We talk about, Nigerians trusting the process, trusting the implementation. It's not just about policies. It's not just about introducing all these policies. What are the ways that we could have a smooth implementation of these policies? That is what we are most always concerned about.
Yes, Mono is also here. Mono, we're talking about, regulations here, which was a question that Emmanuel was trying to ask, and to ensure that there is a smooth run of this process. Yeah, even way before the digital system that is being talked about now. What are the regulations keeping that system in place at the moment? There's a lot of ongoing in the land system in Nigeria, and we know how it operates, even if it's not out there at the moment.
I think that is very important. So are we to see government create an agency or a commission to oversee
Even the networks affecting Mono here too, and preventing him from saying something. Mono, we'll come back to you, but then we'll come back to you on that when the networks have been fixed. But yeah, all right, I'm told Mr. Bamigbola is here now, Emmanuel.
All right, Mr. Bamigbola,
he's back.
Thank you very much for joining us again. We're talking about regulations that need to be put in place to ensure a smooth transition into digitalization. What do you think this could be? Can you hear me now, Mr. Mr. Dotun?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, I go again with the question. One thing Nigerians have learned is, all Nigerians struggle with is the trust in government and processes. I am just asking, do you think there should be regulations, and what are the regulations that could be put in place to ensure a smooth transition?
Okay, can I speak to that? About
yes, of course, go ahead.
Trusting government?
Go ahead.
And the regulations?
Yes, please.
Okay, so concerning trusting government, right? The law is still with the government. So I would rather trust the government to implement this than trust an individual or an organization that is not. Because government has all our intent because we vote them into government. And of course, we should also know that these people in government are from amongst us. So it is what we have brought out that we have governance anyway. So, but they have a wider responsibility to everybody than a private individual or organization having a motive. So, but unfortunately, most of the things these days, government is also looking at the profit end because they have to recoup whatever they are expending from the taxpayers' money, one way or the other. Although you wonder if those can be tampered to be lower a little bit. So government should have a commission at various states for this, but where you have the trust of the people secured is when you engage the private sector professionals or professional association institutions that interact with the people. When you have the Nigerian Institution of Estate Surveyors and Valuers, Institution of Surveyors, the Institute of Town Planners, and all other private sector self-regulated professional bodies involved in this, and even bringing in the civil society so that they can know this what's going on. They will be the mouthpiece of government on this. They'll be the one to say this is how far we are going and this is what we have done so far. I think one of the downside of a lot of establishments in government is that when they are rolling out things like this, there's no time map or timeline for delivery. And so when the populace or the people are not aware of this, let's say you're going to roll this out and in 2 years to be functional, to operational, there are processes to it. By year one, there's a project plan. This is where you get to. You can use it in, for example, in Ikeja and PA. By 6 months to the end of the 2 years, you can use it in Ikorodu, Epe, Lekki, and all of that. I mean, there should be a plan that people can rely upon that will resonate with the people. When such plans are put in place and they see you achieving these milestones, people will trust the process more and they begin to see that, okay, as you're achieving this milestone, it really gets easier in those locations in terms of land digitalization, land titling, and their surveys. It makes it easier for people to trust the system. People, it's like saying seeing is believing. But unfortunately, what we have always had is that government is doing this and you don't know where they're doing it. You don't know how it's going to roll out. You don't know when it's going to be completed. You get it when you get it. So that has been the issue for the lack of trust. But if that can with some of the other institutions, it makes it a lot easier.
All right, we'll have to wrap up on this conversation now, and it makes it a lot more easier with the harmonization of the bodies that you have mentioned to ensure that this process is seamless at the end of the day when it is being, streamed out. We must say thank you so much, Dr. Bamigbola, Estate Surveyor and Valuer, Senior Partner as well at Bamigbola Consulting. Thank you so much for coming on Business this morning. Insightful one, yeah, all the way.
I'm really concerned about the implementation of this process, because one thing Nigeria also struggles with is data. You know, having the necessary data to implement all of this process. But it should not come and register on another person's land.
Coincidentally, you know, it's data we've talked about all through today, and it does tell us that, yes, data is very key to whatever we do in Nigeria, and it is very, very crucial now that we should pay more attention to data to ensure that, you know, these challenges, these problems that we've been talking about is being able to, you know, once we have data, we can begin to profile that the right solutions to the right quarters to, you know, to solve these challenges that has been there for years, even before,
because
you know.
Technology, digitalization works with numbers, zeros and ones. You miss one, move to something else, and you know,
get others wrong. Exactly.
Stories upon stories.
Upon stories.
So we really need to get that right. Mona talked about census. If we don't know the numbers, we can't do anything.
It is very crucial that we should do that again. Well, we have to anchor on that point, data, for today on This Morning on LN 24/7. Unfortunately, Mono was having a network issue. But then, Mono, thank you for being our company, you know, as usual. All the time. And yeah, Uma, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
That's how we wrap it. Thank you too to our audiences. We appreciate your time today on LN 24/7. Don't change the dial. Keep watching us, right?
LN 24/7. Of course, where would you rather go?
If not here. We'll see you again.